All right, Joe Terlecki here, and today we're going to be talking about Bastion hosts within AWS. So if you got some private services in your AWS account and you want to be able to connect to them, let's say from home, you're going to need a Bastion host. A Bastion host is a specific networking component that allows you to access an internal network from an external network. Don't be confused with a VPN, because the difference here is this is just a significant service, such as an SSH, that you're going to be able to tunnel through and chain your tunnel into the private instance. So since they are public-facing infrastructure, they need to be secure. So by doing that, we will have an SSH tunnel, using a key pair, lock down a specific IP, and then you'll have a minimal attack surface. You shouldn't have anything else running on this instance because it's just used for a tunnel. So why do we need these? We need a Bastion host for several reasons. One, it gives you access into a private network, as we just discussed. And two, when you're setting up EC2 instances within AWS, you need that initial configuration and setup and testing. And you don't want to just throw it right in a public subnet because, you want feature parity. Like if you're going to be developing in a private subnet, you need to be testing in a private subnet to make sure everything behaves. And plus, it's best secure practices. So if you're trying to get into an internal network from an external, you might be thinking a VPN. Well, that's if you need consistent access and you need to connect two networks together. So if you're working from home or a coffee shop and you're trying to get into test your AWS EC2 instance, you're not going to have a VPN configured there, and you shouldn't for obvious reasons. So that's where Bastion hosts become your hero. I'm going to switch over here to just give you a little bit of view of what we're going to be creating today. So what you can see here is we have our user, us, connecting into this Bastion instance and then connecting through that Bastion instance into an EC2 application or even a MySQL database. That's the power of this, because you can put listening ports on this tunnel and connect to what you need. So if you have MySQL, Postgres, Oracle SQL, you can all do that through this chain tunnels. So next, we're actually going to go over to AWS and start configuring our Bastion instance. So first things first, we're going to need some key pairs. So I already have a few here for what I already have for my testing infrastructure, but just to make sure you do this correctly and just to show you all the steps along the way, I'm even going to cover the basic stuff, because if you don't know what all this is, at least you'll be able to grab from this video how to do this and get started. So I'm just going to create two key pairs. I'm going to create one for an application instance, and I'm going to create one for a Bastion instance. So what we'll do is we'll do app demo key. You want to make sure that's a PEM format or a PPK if you're Windows. Create key pair. And I am going to just download this. I'm going to save this into my documents, inserts, save. One more time, and then we're going to do Bastion demo key. And we'll create key pair. And I'll save this in my certificates folder. Okay, so now that we got our key pairs, we're not going to jump right to the instances yet. We're going to create our security groups, because the security groups are going to be our firewall to these instances, and we want to make sure that they're configured correctly. And by what I mean by that is we want to make sure the application instance only allows SSH access from anything that's within the Bastion security group via our Bastion instance. So if we go over to EC2, and let's go security groups. And you can see that I already have two here, for my production workloads and my testing, but we're going to create new ones. So we'll do we'll do Bastion demo security group, Bastion demo, inbound rules, SSH. Now description, you should be putting your home IP here. I am not going to put my home IP here, so that way you don't have it. We're going to go into here, and we're just going to do anywhere, because that is a secure way to do things. And the outbound rules, we'll just leave that as all. Create a security group. We're going to do one more for our application. So what we want to do is we want to grab this demo security group that we just created. We want to get the security group ID. We're going to create security group. App demo SG. We'll name it app demo. Now for our inbound rules here, do SSH. Not from an IP. We're going to do that security group we just made. SSH Bastion. So this application can only accept port 22 from here. And that's what we want. If there was another service running on here, like HTTPD, like a web server or anything like that, you know, we could just put that here, HTTP 80. And we'll actually do anywhere on here because this application is going to be in a private subnet. My route tables are configured that way. So that way, the only thing it has access is through the public and vice versa and out. So that way, if I had a load balancer in my public subnet, this application would work. So just for testing, we're going to make sure this is HTTP anywhere. And then create security group. So now I should be able to SSH into this instance, and then maybe even to show you how you can demo HTTP access as well if you ever had an internal web server. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to EC2. And then now we're going to create 2 instances. I'm going to use Ubuntu for both of these because I'm just like Debian style distros, and I just think Ubuntu is quick and easy. So what we'll do is we'll do 2004. We will pick a T3A micro just to keep things nice and cheap. All right, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to create our Bastion instance. And we want to make sure we pick the correct subnet. So I have a bunch of subnets here. I'm going to pick my US East 1A public subnet. And by default, it should automatically get an IP. Add default storage, 8 gigabytes. Let's do 15. And automatically encrypted. Tags, we'll name it Bastion demo. That's not name, that's namer. Okay, configure security group. Now here's why I configured a security group first. I can just select it and it's all ready to go. Review and launch. Launch. And Bastion demo key. Acknowledge. Launch instances. All right, now we're going to go back and we're going to create one more for our application. Where is Ubuntu? T3A micro. Gotta love that AMD. Bigger instance. Now we want to make sure we pick a private subnet. So we got private US East 1A. It's not going to get a public IP by default. Storage. 15 gigs, add tags, name, app demo, select. Now we'll pick the app demo security group. Review and launch, launch, app demo key, launch instances. Now let's go see what's going on over here. So we got our Bastion demo, public facing. Let's grab this IP now that it's ready. You can go ahead and steal this IP all you want. By the time you see this video, this instance will be gone. Double check key pair name is correct. And I'm going to open up a terminal. So we got this terminal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into our documents starts folder, and now I'm going to create the correct permissions for our new key pairs. So let's see, SSH-I. Let's do our Bastion first, make sure this works. Ubuntu at the public IP. Accept the hosts. All right, we're in. You can see I'm Ubuntu user on IP 10.0.1.155, which is this IP here. So now our app instance is up and ready as well. What we want to do is we want to forward some listening ports through this Bastion instance into our application instance. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab this private IP. We're going to exit back out of this tunnel. And we're going to use the same command again. But instead of just leaving it this way, we're going to give it a dash capital L. And what that is going to forward listening ports for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to do forward 9999, the private IP on port 22. Okay, everything looks good. And now we're going to create another tab. Now from here, what we're going to do to get into this private instance, we're going to have to use that listening tunnel. And to use that, we're actually going to be using localhost. So if we do a SSH-I, go to your key pairs that you downloaded, search app demo. Now we're going to do Ubuntu at localhost. Okay. Now if we were to run this, it won't work. See, connection refused. That's because it's not listening on 22 right now. It's actually listening on port 9999. If you come back to here, remember, we started listening on port 999 while this is actually using port 22. So I'm going to do lowercase p and then 4 nines. And you can see here, we're going to check the host verification. Yes. Voila. We're in our private instance. We can see here that we have IP 10.0.2.123. 0.2.123. Now what we did is we essentially just, well, not essentially, we did. We connected to a private instance from a public facing infrastructure. So that's pretty much it. There's not much to this at a very basic level. Now you can take this multiple steps forward. You can use something like LDAP or, Jump Cloud to do automatic user provisioning from your Azure Active Directory, or you could even use AWS OpsWorks to auto create user key pairs and users using chef cookbooks. It's a documented process and solution from AWS. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's something that definitely works. So the options are there. So that's pretty much it for a Bastion host. Now, just to tidy this up, I'm going to show you how you can actually, say if you had a public web instance and you were trying to connect to it. So instead of just forwarding port 22, I'm going to close this connection and this one. And instead of just doing -L 9999, we're going to forward another one. So we're going to do 9998 10.0.2.123 80. And you'll see why in a second. Let's go back into our private instance. And we're just going to sudo apt install httpd. Oops. And if I know how to spell. I'm sorry, it's called Apache 2. Let that run. Aha, it's not working because I'm not using NAT gateways in this account. I'm using a NAT instance to save money. And that's a hint for the next video. So if you're using NAT instances, make sure you start them. All right, so while this boots up, I'm just going to cut back over for that embarrassing moment. I'm going to leave it in the clip because everybody's human and everybody makes stupid mistakes. All right. My NAT instance is up and running, and now I'm able to make outbound connections from my private subnet. All right, so now that that's running, we're going to do a sudo systemctl start Apache 2, sudo systemctl status Apache 2. And I can't type today. All right, it's running. So if I go back over, if I go to my web browser, I should be able to do a HTTP localhost 9998. There you go. And boom, Bob's your uncle. There's a private web server in my AWS account via port forwarding to my computer with Apache. That's pretty much it. As I said before, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and you can do a lot with these. So that's it. And sorry for all the ums and the ahs and the s's, but you know what? I only have one day to film this video, and this is what you're getting. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.